So, good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
I'm
Rabbi.
excited. We're back at it after a week hiatus.
I didn't miss anything this
No,
week.
you haven't missed anything. No.
Alright.
So when the building is closed, the Gemara class doesn't happen, alas. So, just to kind of review where we've been a little bit, the conversation we're having is around the idea that when you make a vow to bring an offering to the temple, that I am then obligated to bring that vow, and I have some version of 3 festivals to fulfill that vow, right? So it could be 3 festivals from whenever you made the vow. It could be 1 festival. It could be 3 festivals having to be in order, starting with Pesach. So therefore, it could actually be 5 festivals, depending on when you make your obligation. Some sort of variations thereof. If I don't fulfill my obligation, then I transgress the prohibition, you shall not delay. Okay? So, at which point I am liable for something, which we really haven't talked about, like what we're actually liable for, but we'll just say we're liable. And the conversation we've been having most recently is going through one of the biblical sources for this section and going through line by line by line. We're actually going to stop. We're going to put that to the side. We're going to kind of sort of jump into something new, but it includes all of those concepts. Everybody with me so far? Cool. All right. The section we just finished was, as I said, the section where it went it had a verse and it went word by word by word. And the conversation it was just ending was whether or not, when we use the word hechag, the festival, whether or not that always refers to Sukkot. And what we learned at the very end here, according to Rav Zevid, was that it talks about all these different offerings, and then at the end it says, he argues that anywhere that a Tana teaches using the term Passover, he also teaches using the term Shavuot. In those instances, according to Rabbi Steinsaltz, these 2 festivals are mentioned by name, and the term festival itself is reserved exclusively for Sukkot. So on one side we have the use of the word Sukkot when we say Hechag. In other cases, it's contextual, depending on which holiday we're talking about. So all of that is to basically say we're not talking about that. Right? That's where we ended last week. So don't worry about it if you're like, what is he talking? We're not talking about that. What we are going to talk about is jumping in a little bit sooner. And the section we're about to learn is kind of meta in the sense that it's the Talmud kind of talking about itself. So I just want you to have that in the back of your head, that that's the kind of thing we're talking about. Okay. I want to point out an important technical term. If you look in the Aramaic, we're on the 3rd paragraph in 6b. Does everybody see where we are? It starts with the word Amar Rava, or Rava said. In the Aramaic, if you look at the 3rd line, first word, it says Meitivi. Meitivi introduces a contradiction, meaning to say it's raising an objection. So when you see that word, that means someone is saying, wait a second, that doesn't work. I object. And then if you look at the last 2 words, it says Bal Te'acher, which means you shall not delay. Yes, Rich?
No, I'm good.
Oh, you were...
Thank you. No?
Yeah.
I'm good.
All right, everybody with me so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Can I get a volunteer to read in English where it says Rava said? Go for it.
So, Rabbi said, once 3 festivals have passed, every day he transgresses the prohibition, you shall not delay.
All right, let's pause there for a second, because this is new. All right, we didn't really think about, once you hit you shall not delay, well then what?
Then what happens?
What we're learning is what?
The new transgression every day.
Every single day you're racking up debt.
Every single day after that festival is passed.
Exactly. So, for example, and this happens to be unfortunately true for me as well, borrowed a book from the library, and every day, no, that's a good thing. Every day that I don't return it on time, right? Can't renew it anymore. Somebody else wants it. I get dinged every day.
25 cents.
25 cents. I think of it as donation to the city, that's okay. But every single day, my prohibition gets added to, right? That to me feels like what is analogous here. Yeah.
So you have to bring a sin offering for every day
So-
and potentially completely decimate your
So it's not
flock, which means you better. There's motivation to
right. So
stay on time.
that feels so unfeasible. So I wonder if the Gemara is going to spend some time solving that problem, because I can make a mistake or something, or I don't do something and then I'm penalized forever. I can never catch up. So hopefully they resolve that. All right, keep going. Rabbi Dayan.
So the Gemara Meitivi raises an objection from that which is taught in the following Baraita.
Which means, I'm sorry, that what's about to come is a Baraita. And let's remember, what is a
Right.
Baraita?
It's a discussion or a ruling that is external to the Mishnah.
Right. So it's a text from the same time as the Mishnah, but it's not in the Mishnah.
Right.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, so here's the Baraita. In the case of a firstborn animal and all consecrated animals, once a year without 3 festivals has passed. Once a year without 3 festivals has passed, or 3 festivals have passed without a year elapsing, the owner transgresses the prohibition, you shall not delay.
Okay. Can someone point out to me what the objection is? I think it's actually particularly obtuse.
Well, because there's a problem with the objection.
Yeah.
Okay, well, for one thing, we're talking about animals that are already, the term hekdesh, that are already consecrated, designated for sacrifice.
Right.
Okay, so it's not just any animal in your flock. It's something that you have already designated, or that's one that's the firstborn, which almost by default is designated
Right.
for the temple.
Right. So we have
Right.
these 2 categories.
Right.
One being a firstborn animal, which is something we're already obligated
Right,
to owe to the temple. So the question we might ask is, does this really count as a vow?
right.
Right?
Right, it doesn't count as a vow, it's already in
Right.
Torah already.
Exactly.
that you're supposed to
And the
do that.
second category is all consecrated animals,
Mm-hmm.
which would include,
Right.
well, it could include a firstborn, but it also include your vow, right? Because it's
Right.
consecrated.
The ones that said,
things you're
I vow
obligated
that I am
to,
going
right.
to
Right.
do this. That's,
So we have these 2 categories we identify,
Mm-hmm.
and then what?
and then 2 possible situations. One is that a year, I don't kind of understand what a year without 3 festivals is.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I
the
don't
problem with the objection.
Right.
Right. So we got this
Right.
weird thing about a year without
What does
3
that mean?
without 3
The other
festivals,
one
whatever
does
that
make
means.
sense. Or 3 festivals have passed without a year elapsing. Now, how could that be? I guess it's if it didn't go in
Well,
order.
it depends, right? It depends on when this happens, is whether 3 festivals have passed before the end of the year. That I get. Could happen, right?
I don't.
No, but I think what they're saying is a year has elapsed
An entire year.
without festivals.
Zero
Here's
Well, that part I don't get. It's the second one I
Right.
understand.
Here's a theory. Well, if the temple's been destroyed, right, the salient element here with regard to the festivals is not that you have your Pesach Seder, but that you can go to the temple and make your offering.
Oh, got you.
And so, if the year passes without being able to offer the sacrifices, you're still liable. Which is, so the problem is not just that it says a year without festivals, but that the year without festivals would come in a situation where you couldn't continue that. Now you're liable.
So wait a second. It's not a year without festivals. We've got 2 categories here. We have a year period of time in which there have not been 3 festivals,
And how can that be?
right? Or 3 festivals, even if it's not a year,
Well, 3 festivals without a year, that can happen. That's
That's
pretty
easy.
right? So those are our 2 categories. I'm not resolving this yet because the Gemara is going to spend some time on
But
it.
that first category, that's kind of
It's
weird.
strange, right?
That's like, in a time of war, what happened? That you
Right.
had
Well, so the
three-
festivals happen without us, right? They're part of time at this point.
Unless the temple isn't there.
But that's true. The
But
temple
then-
certainly isn't there when we're writing this.
Right, you still have the festival.
Do you have something you want to add?
Well, but if someday they can
That's
also
the
offerings,
Wait,
then
wait,
that's the...
let's have one
So is the
conversation.
festival dependent on the offering?
It's okay. Go for it.
So what it's referring to is an inability of the individual to actually bring the animal over the course of the year. So it's not healthy. So you can't take it.
It's what?
Not healthy. So you can't take it, but it could recover. So you can't bring it. And then you could certainly have the year elapse.
So I think you name it a really important point, and the Gemara spends some time on the question: what happens if they can't feasibly do it?
Right.
However, that's not what this is saying, right? Which is this is about some sort of time frame, right? Not my ability to necessarily do it. But you're exactly right. Those are the kinds of questions the Gemara did spend time on, right? So you're exactly right. Well, maybe I'm not capable of doing it for some sort of external factor. That's not what this is saying. Yeah.
Yes, I do. I do have a question.
Yeah.
Do the three festivals change their character when there's no temple to make sacrifices? Are they still the same holidays or festivals, but without that one thing, or have they changed in some essential form?
Right. So where your question is, I'm not going to answer it because I don't know the answer. But I think the question is a good one, which is, okay, are we working under a system in which the temple is still standing, giant air quotes, because none of it is standing when we're having this conversation? Or are we talking about the totally separate paradigm of the temple, we live in the fact that the temple doesn't stand, and here we are.
Correct.
Right? So my guess, my strong suspicion from what we've been reading is that we're still working in the paradigm of the temple is
still up.
Air quotes standing, right? Gotcha. We're still working with the assumption that I can bring an offering even though I can't, right? Okay. So there's something going on here that's really strange. Yeah, Jim.
I had a question about the firstborn.
Yeah.
Are there any Jews still today who kind of practice like dedicating the firstborn son?
So there are definitely rituals around firstborn sons for sure. Pidyon haben, kind of redemption of the firstborn. It's a acting out of the same kind of ritual. I don't know if people do that with their flocks. My guess is that some people will leave their firstborn of certain flocks and just leave it be as a kind of an honoring of that tradition. But I don't know. Certainly no modern Jews are doing sacrifices.
Yeah.
Right. And certainly not of children.
We know that. So we would find that out very quickly.
Very exactly right. Okay, so we've got so we got a statement from Rava. Every single day this transgression begins. And then we've got this sort of strange objection that's doing something with our information, right? We've identified categories and time frames in which, if that time frame ends and we haven't fulfilled our obligation, we've transgressed, you shall not delay. Okay, we got something going on here. And I'm going to leave it because the Gemara is as confused as we are.
So I just want to confirm one thing, which is that there are really only three festivals. There are only three festivals that are called festivals. Yeah,
we're not talking about like a new festival.
That's right. I mean, even in this time, there were no
just the three
new things that somebody was calling a festival.
No, exactly right. It's like a good puzzle. I love it. All of us are very consternated. It's good. All right, let's keep going. Can I get another volunteer to read? Okay, Rich, go for it. Wait, before we do, let's just see if there's some important words. All right, keep going.
Sure. The Gemara first expresses its astonishment at the question itself. What is this objection? That's what we asked before. What is the comparison between this ruling and the statement of
Rava?
Nice.
No, it's okay. All right, we're going to pause you there. So I want to make sure an important thing. When we're reading this in the Koran version, the bold is the translation, and the not bold is the commentary. So it's an important thing to remember. But I think the point is still there, which is the Gemara is asking, what are we talking about? What is this objection we're talking about? This doesn't seem to be objecting. The Gemara itself is surprised at this text. It's a little meta. All right, keep going, Rich.
Okay, cool.
I know it's sort of blurry. I apologize.
That's okay. We'll work it out. Rav Kahana said, he who raises an objection here raises a valid objection, and this is the way the question should be understood.
All right, Rav Kahana for the rescue.
Since the Tana of the Baraita,
Let me just pause you there, sorry.
Yes,
The Tana is the name of the category of rabbi in the time of the Mishnah and the Braita. Meaning to say, that's the category. If you were talking about a rabbi of that time, they are called a Tana. In the subsequent time period, they are called an Amora. Just to, right, keep going, right? Oh, sorry.
I just want to back. I apologize. I want to back up for just 1 second.
Yeah.
So I looked at Rashi's commentary on this idea of a year without festivals, and Rashi's comment is essentially to establish an interpretation, to give us something to wrestle with, is the reason why it said that.
Nice.
Something that could never happen, but you got to talk about it because
It's there to get us to discuss
philosophically
it.
possible. Yeah.
It's nice.
to see if we're paying attention.
So the Gemara adds another wrinkle to that, but I'm really glad you added that. Thank you. So Rashi knows what we're feeling right now. That's the important part. All right, keep going.
He feels our pain.
Exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
He's been where we've been. Since the Tana.
Right. Since the Tana of the Baraita is looking for prohibitions to add, and he shows that the prohibition applies in additional cases, then, if Rabbah is correct, let the Tana of the Baraita teach that once 3 festivals have passed, he transgresses the prohibition. He shall not delay every single day.
Okay. What is Rav Kahana doing? What solution does he have to this strange objection? What is he saying? Let me rephrase the question. So the rabbis, imagine the rabbis are playing like a game of chess, right? There are moves, right? Hermeneutical moves that they're trying to move the pieces to make things smooth out. So what's the move that Rav Kahana is doing to solve this objection, to or at least resolve the question around this objection, even if he's not solving it itself?
I think that, to me, the operative phrase is Rav Kahana's statement that was it Rabba? Yes. No. The objection is trying to add showing that the prohibition can apply in other cases than just the couple that we already looked at, and therefore, because you don't know, this would be my interpretation, you don't know when that might or might not apply, the safest thing is to assume that the prohibition then has to apply every day after the 3 festivals have passed.
Right.
It's broadening the context.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So what's the thing that he is adding?
I'm saying that he's adding the uncertainty of the fact that there can be other situations in which this prohibition.
The time frame.
Right. It's the
Got
time
it.
frame. So therefore, the safest thing, the most conservative thing, is to assume that it's every single day, because somebody is going to have one of these other crazy situations. You know.
So the Braita seems to say, I'm just going to translate back what you said, right? Which is, the Braita seems to say there is the circumstance of a time frame of a year in which 3 festivals haven't passed, right? And such, what the objection is, right? You're arguing the objection is, actually, we should be careful. We need to limit we're adding this prohibition. We're going to limit the case, which is 3 festivals, and then it's every day. And so, the objection is that, like, wait, we need to be careful here. We need to frame ourselves appropriately. Did I say what you said back in a way that makes
I was
sense?
trying to say that they're taking, in a sense, the most conservative possible reading, which is there is no situation under which any one particular day you'd be exempt.
Right.
From this problem of not having delayed with the festival.
What about on Shabbat?
Say more.
What about on Shabbat? Are you transgressing on Shabbat too?
That's a great question. Maybe it's 6 days a week. Yeah.
Although there were Shabbat offerings.
Sure.
So it's not clear that you were restricted from bringing other offerings on Shabbat?
That's a great question.
Yeah, because to me,
So,
it happened.
so there's one other thing that we hadn't seen yet in this section, and again, this objection thing is very strange. Like, I don't feel totally resolved in it myself. The only other thing that I see is the idea of the firstborn animal. Is the only thing that's been added to our conversation here. Meaning to say that one piece of the objection that I'm hearing is, oh, we have this case of the firstborn animal, which we have not encountered yet, and that prohibition also gets applied every single day once you cross the boundary. Because that's not something we had seen before. So, I'm not. I think you're just as right as I am in the sense that, like, we've got some sort of addition. That's what Rav Kahana is telling us. There's a real objection here, and that objection is an addition, which is we didn't have the full picture, and now we do. All right, everybody with me? Or at least as much as anyone can be? Yeah. All right, let's keep going. Turn the page.
Okay.
So then we have the question, okay, let's just stack this up one more time. So we have Rava, who is one rabbi, who's making a statement about daily prohibition. And then you have this Baraita, which comes to object, to add, depending on what you ask. So then we might want to ask the question, well, what does Rava have to say about this? I get a volunteer to read at the top of the page 271 on 6b. This is the 5th paragraph on 6b. Someone else who hasn't read.
And how does the other Amora Rava explain the Baraita? He understands that the Tana is trying to establish the action only as subject to a prohibition. That is, he merely wishes to set the parameters of the prohibition. But once the action is established as prohibited, he is not looking for additional prohibitions.
Yeah, so I also looked up the Rashi on this to see if there was anything, and there's no Rashi. Rashi does not comment on this line, which is disconcerting, because it is not clear exactly what this means.
Well, but I think
please.
that if we go back to his comment previously, it could be that he's not commenting on this. He's saying the whole point here is the discussion,
mental gymnastics,
and not the actually coming to a conclusion. And I suspect that it's because of this thing we're wrestling with, the fact that you can't have a year pass without festivals.
Yes, sort of. Again, the Gemara is going to come, but I do think there's something strange going on here. And I think you might be right, but Rashi is saying, wait a sec, this is weird. Don't get too hung up on it, maybe. Right? But I think what Rava is doing, this is how I understand this, which is that the objection is not really an objection, but more of a explanation, right? Just a clarification in the sense that, like, you have these things, there will be a passage of time, and then you will hit "you shall not delay." That to me, it feels strange, right? But the idea that the Tana is establishing just the subject of the prohibition, which is consecrated animals and firstborn animals and some sort of time frame, and you shall not delay. That's how I understand this. Rava is not seeing this as an objection so much as a clarification. But I'm going to admit, this is very strange, and I don't feel totally settled on this on my own.
Doesn't it feel? It feels to me as though that bit that has been recorded and has come down to us is really like something from a whole other little discussion that was going on that wasn't recorded because it's so odd. Yes, I have a feeling, that's what my gut tells me too, which is that this whole idea of an objection was added later. Or was not really this conversation, because it's not really an objection. It doesn't have all of the telltale signs of what an objection would look like, which is, no, you're wrong. Right.
Or some
Shita,
other construction that says, this is a real objection. Right. This doesn't feel like an objection. So I also think there's something strange going on. All right. We're going to move along. I don't want us to feel like we're moving too quickly. Does everyone feel like they have a sense of at least what's the
That we have a
conversation.
sense of how confused everything is.
Sure,
Yeah.
I like it. I like
I
it.
say I could have left it a while ago being confused and not really worried about it either because
Nice.
something else will happen.
Right. So we are going to get some clarity today then. I will not leave you without any clarity.
See, I told you you could have left earlier. Then we'd be clear by now.
So I wanted to share one of my absolute favorite technical terms. It's the very first word of the second paragraph on page 271. Gufa. Which
Gufa.
means
The
like the matter of the self,
Yeah.
the matter itself. My friend likes to translate it, Rabbi Adir Yolkut, as back at the ranch. Back to the thing we were talking about. All right, and I think that's perfect. So I just want to highlight.
That's perfect.
Exactly. So I want to just highlight that important term. On the third line, on the last word, you'll see the word bishlama in Aramaic. Does everybody see that? You've seen that word before, but what that word means is it's reasonable to say. It's a reasonable thing to do. Here it's translated as granted. Right? So it's granted. And then right below it, you see the word Ella, Aleph, Lamed, Aleph. Does everybody see that? Right there, right under the word bishlama, which means rather. So we're already starting to get this construction. Well, it seems reasonable that X will happen, rather, maybe not. Right? There's some sort of back and forth that's happening here. So, Gufa, Bishlama, Ella. Everybody with me so far? Okay. And I get a volunteer to read in English for me. Go for it. The Gemara proceeds.
The Gemara proceeds to discuss the matter itself. Oh my gosh. I.e. the Baraisa cited above, which stated, in the case of both the firstborn animal and all consecrated animals, once a year has passed, even if 3 festivals have not passed, or once 3 festivals have passed, even if a whole year has not passed, the owner transgresses the prohibition, you shall not do it.
Right? So Gemara is going to say, all right, we talked about the construction of the argument, right? We have Rava and Rav Kahana and coming to explain this weirdness. Now the Gemara is going to spend some time with the content itself.
Right.
Not about the thing itself.
Thank goodness. Granted, it's possible to have 3 festivals without a year. You find it because 3 festivals can pass in half a year between Passover and Sukkot. But a year without 3 festivals, under what circumstances can you find this case? How can a year pass without 3 festivals also pass?
I love
That's what we said.
I love the fact that the Talmud is as baffled at this question as we were.
All right.
Like, what are you talking about? You can't have a festival, a whole year with not 3 festivals. Yes.
Well, I mean, I think it says something interesting about the construction of the Talmud, right? You had, they brought in this Baraisa, where somebody got kind of abstract, kind of off on this, completely obscure tangent. But we can't disregard that because this is an acknowledged authority from a previous generation. Who are we to disregard that? So we have to now dig ourselves out of the corner that this guy painted us into because he went, he didn't get enough sleep one night. His brain just started going off on random thoughts.
Right, so like the idea that even though it seems to make no sense, we have to take it seriously because it comes from a serious source. We can't just ignore it.
I think it's actually, it's all those things. It's also a device to help us get completely clear and nail this down so there's no loose threads whatsoever. And it's very confusing, but the Gemara is getting to figuring out what is this really about. They brought the Baraisa in for a reason.
Right. It's not, presumably it's not there for no reason. It's here to teach us something. Right? Of course, we know the Gemara always ties up the loose threads. Really? No, it does not. Sometimes. We hope. We dream for it. Okay. So we asked the question, how could it be possible to have a year without 3 festivals? Let's just remember when the festivals are. Let's just sketch out the year for ourselves. The very first month of the year is the month of Nisan, which is in the spring, around the holiday of Passover. The following festival is what? Shavuot, which is over the summer, and then Sukkot, which comes in the fall. So, as was clear, we can have half a year go by and we've hit all 3 festivals. Right? We started the first month, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, we're done. Right? The question is, how do we get the opposite to be true?
So I'm wondering something here, but I hope that this isn't going to take us too far
That's okay.
into outer space. Whether it could have anything to do with the whole problem of months ago of when does the year start?
Say more.
Because I'm thinking about, if it's the first of Nisan that a year starts, then, then somebody who just got, installed as king has already served for a year, or that whole discussion.
So you're saying maybe we're talking about like a year that goes by like in a day.
That's right.
Right.
Whether that concept
Some sort of
could be
legal
weighing-
fiction.
could be weighing in here.
Oh, that's nice. I like that. I like that.
All right, so here's what I got to think.
That looks good.
That's good.
I got to thinking about that. We had the year with the 3 festivals that starts in Nisan, but we also have a year that starts with Rosh Hashanah
Right.
and has Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And what would be the third one, or is there a third one? Is there anything else that goes with those two?
Sukkot.
No, because Sukkot goes with the other two.
But so Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are not formally festivals in name.
Right, that's what I'm saying. There's
But-
something different.
Right.
Is there anything else like them? Did I miss another
I
one?
don't think so. But let's do the math, right? Let's say we start with Rosh Hashanah as the beginning of the year, right? So then we have Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot. Have we hit a year without 3 festivals yet?
No.
No, we haven't.
No, we haven't. But what I was actually thinking about was kind of that there's actually 2 layers of time that run concurrently.
Yeah.
That's
And
where I would
sometimes we're working on one layer. I mean, you kind of feel this during the fall, right? So when you have, starting around Tisha B'Av, and all of a sudden there's like, the month of Elul, and then there's Rosh Hashanah,
Right.
there's Yom Kippur. You've got 6 or 7 things lined up in the space of a month, but they're not really on the same calendar.
That's interesting.
You know what I'm
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, there is a sense in the Jewish calendar that there are these multiple cycles that are running
Right, exactly,
kind of
exactly.
concurrently
It's a different
or in parallel. I mean, I think the Kajushat Levi, who's Reb Levi of Berdichev, does, I taught this a couple of years ago, maybe I'll bring it back, has this whole conversation of comparing Tisha B'Av, or really the month of Elul, through Sukkot Shmini Atzeret, which is the end of Sukkot, as one unit, and then Pesach through Shavuot is another one, and puts them on top of one another as cycles throughout the year. That's a really interesting question. I'm not sure it solves the problem.
No, it doesn't.
But-
It just makes me think about
Yeah,
it.
but-
That's in Talmud, like anything is fair.
Yeah. So, but I think that's a reasonable thing. But I think that's a reasonable thing to say about the Jewish calendar.
Yeah.
Right, regardless of
this. There are times in the Jewish year when those cycles just kind of pile up on one another, and you can't tell which one you're in.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to
I
that.
don't know about anybody else, but I always find that time of year, to a certain extent, pretty exhausting.
Yeah,
Because,
I don't know anyone who doesn't.
Yeah,
So,
but you're moving from one thing to the other, and sometimes they seem to be related, and sometimes they don't.
yeah,
Right?
yeah. So I definitely
Spiritually
think
and
there's
emotionally, it's a roller coaster.
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely. Okay.
So,
Yeah, Rich. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so just with Cindy, what you had stated, if you're starting your counting at Rosh Hashanah, then there's actually more than a year for the 3 festivals to occur. If you start your count there, so it's actually 53 weeks because you have to go through the. No, wrong. Okay, so no, wait a minute. So Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuot. Okay, so it's
So that takes you through the summer.
okay.
you just move a year back.
We're so close, Rich.
It's still.
We're so close to solving it. But this is a bit of a puzzle. All right, let's see if we can get some resolution here. All right, who hasn't read yet? Who wants to read? All right, go for it. We're going to start with the Gemara clarifies the question.
Gemara clarifies the question. This works out well according to the one who is of the opinion that one transgresses the prohibition against delaying only if the 3 festivals have passed in their proper order. You can find a year without 3 festivals in their proper order, e.g., if one made his vow shortly before Shavuos, in which case the year will end before Shavuos the following year, But 3 festivals in order will not elapse
okay.
until Sukkot of the 3rd year.
All right, let's just spell that out.
I get that.
All right, you want to spell it out?
No,
Go for it.
So if you made your vow, what this is saying is if you made your vow right before Shavuot in 1 year, that year is going to end before Shavuot of the next year, because that's your 300, your year's time. But you won't have had the 3 required festivals in order during that year's time.
yeah.
Right. So there's a desire.
The new thing is that they need to be in order.
Right.
That's
So there's this desire to have them in the proper order, which starts with Pesach.
Right.
So Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot.
That's
So if I do it before Shavuot, I have to go all the way around, starting with Pesach again.
Right.
Right, and therefore I have a year without the 3 festivals in their proper order.
And so it's kind of like the obverse of what I was suggesting.
Sure, right.
So you have to go farther.
Right. So, but we have to have this. What adds with that solution? What do we have to assume to make that solution
The
work?
order is critical.
That the order is critical.
So they're saying if you hold that way,
Yeah.
then yes, this could explain it.
Exactly. Right. So right in the tradition, we honor the fact that not everybody holds the same. So at least for the people who hold that the proper order matters, we have a solution.
It's not the order, it's the starting point. That's the issue. The order is always,
Point of the part of
they occur in sequence, but the starting point then tells you what's your first festival.
Right. I think we're saying the same thing, but I think that's a really important.
But the word
issue.
order just gets me.
Yeah.
Same order, but it's a
Right, we're not going backwards.
different starting
Yeah.
point.
I think your point is well made.
Wait a second. There's an element that's missing. If you start before Shavuot, Shavuot then counts as one of the festivals, does it not?
Right.
And then Sukkot, and then Pesach. So you have had 3 festivals in the proper order. However, you haven't started with the right one.
Yeah. That's
Right.
what they're
That's
saying.
beginning of the year.
Right.
That's
So-
the
So we need to
beginning
start
of
Right,
the
I think
year.
that was Rich's.
I'm just objecting to the wording, the word order.
Right.
I think you're
That's all.
totally right.
It's the English I'm
Beginning of your
objecting to.
year
Yeah.
and the beginning of the year have not been
So
the
I
same.
think when the position is being held that it has to be in a proper order, I think the subtext is that it starts in Pesach.
That it starts with Pesach.
Right? It's not being made explicit, but I think you were exactly right. Let's make it explicit. Which is
That helps.
when we say proper order, what we mean is starting with Pesach.
Right.
Because they're always
Thank
in
you.
order,
That's
right?
right.
Because we're not going backwards in time.
because Pesach's always the first holiday.
Right. So let's really good to be clear. When we say proper order, we mean starting point. Absolutely.
But which is ridiculous because a transgression will occur anytime during the year that you have to make up for. So, but let's
Sure, but
use-
let's be clear about our context though, because that's really important. Which is we've made a vow. I've obligated myself to do something within a time frame until which I'm okay. But as soon as I cross that timeline, I transgress. Right?
Let's say, for example, you do something, you make a vow that you're going to bring something on Sukkot, and you don't do it. Okay, so Sukkot has now then passed, but it's not the beginning of the year, which starts with Pesach. So therefore, Pesach and Shavuot, and you need to go to the next one.
Right, but you made a really important specification in your vow, which is I am vowing to do this on Sukkot.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Right, so that changes things. Right, so this is the circumstance where, right, I am having an awesome year. My crops are growing like crazy, and so due to my gratitude, I am vowing. Right, in this example, not really. Right, I don't have any crops, so I don't want to obligate myself here. Right, right. So I make some sort of vow that I'm going to bring in Bessie the cow to the temple, right? I haven't specified when, and that's when our timeline starts. But if I say, okay, I'm going to bring Fred the goat on Sukkot,
Right.
that might change things. So I want to just be clear.
Yes, okay, but say you don't specify. Say I blew it, and I actually didn't mean to specify
Okay.
Sukkot. But even so, still, the 3 festivals, including the Sukkot that's just about to start, and the next 2, are not in the order
Correct.
if you need to start with Pesach.
Correct.
So
That's how you get to a year without 3 festivals.
Right.
If you hold by, they must be in the proper order, starting with Pesach. Right? Thank you. You're welcome.
Right, so
I got you back.
they're offering a way to understand that statement.
Right. They're trying to resolve it. Right. Let's get to the big but that comes next. Who was reading? You were.
But according to one who is not of the opinion that the 3 festivals must be in their proper order, under what circumstances can you find this case of a year without 3 festivals? So they're coming back and saying, well, you know, hold that way, how can we possibly understand?
Right. We're kind of in a conundrum here. It works for somebody, but not for everybody. We got to solve this. Okay. Now, look. If you look at the Aramaic, we're now in the 4th paragraph here. It's the first word is bishlama. It's reasonable, granted. The second line, second word, ditanya. It was taught in a baraita. That's what that means. So we know that some reasonable argument is going to be made, and then we're going to get a quote from a baraita, perhaps as proof. It's not clear, something like that, right? Just building our understanding of the structure of how these arguments get made. Okay, the Gemara clarifies again. Granted, according to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, whose name I don't think we've actually encountered yet in our discussions, you find a year without 3 festivals in a leap year, as it was taught in a baraita. So here, he's resolving it by saying, you don't hold by the proper order thing, I got you covered. We got a leap year to solve your problem. It was taught in a baraita. In the case of houses of walled cities, with regard to which an owner is given only 1 year to redeem his home if he sells it, so there are clearly laws around if you live in a walled city, there's some sort of 1 year redemption time frame, after which it becomes the permanent possession of the purchaser. The verse states, and if it be not redeemed within the space of a full year. So now, not only do we have a baraita, which gives it authority, we have a verse which gives it double authority. How is the year determined? Right? We have this full year question. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says, one counts 365 days like the number of the days in the solar year, and not the usual lunar year, which is why it's called a full year. So we've got this word in the Aramaic. In the verse, it says Shana Tmima. Does everybody see that in the Hebrew? This is the second line, 3rd and 4th words. Shana Tmima, this full, complete year. And so the question is, what is a Shana Tmima? According to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, it's not a solar year. It's not a lunar year. It is a solar year. And in a leap year, in which a Jewish year would be longer, the lunar year would be longer than the solar year, we've now encountered our year without 3 festivals.
Oh, because it could be a month shorter. Oh.
We have 2 Adars in a leap year. We have 2.
Yeah.
And when do they show up? Right before Pesach.
Oh, yes, of course.
Right?
You're only counting 12 months. You're not counting.
You're counting 365 days. Yeah.
Rabbi says you count 365 days.
Yeah.
I think what he's saying is you don't use the calendar, you just count 365.
Correct.
Well, you don't
But in
use
the-
the Jewish calendar.
Right. But those 365 days is shorter
Right.
than a Jewish year with a leap month. Right, a leap
Yes,
year, right?
yes.
That's the point. But I think you're exactly right. We're not counting anything
Wait a
but
second.
days.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
The solar cycle, the festival cycle, the Rosh Hashanah cycle, probably have
No, I think isn't the opposite? That a Jewish year without the leap year is what is shorter than
Correct.
300.
So I'm going to draw a diagram. I'm a super visual.
But if you have a leap year
Yes,
and you count 365 days,
yeah.
right? You're now 8 or 9 days short of a full year, of a Jewish year, right?
So
let's say you start with Shavuot,
Okay.
right? You count 365 days, right? Which in a non-leap year puts you 11 days after Shavuot, right? So now you've covered 3 festivals. However, in a leap year, right? In a Jewish leap year, that now puts you 8 or 9 days short of Shavuot.
You won't cover all 3.
here we go.
Yeah.
In a Jewish, I'm so visual. In a Jewish lunar year, it's slightly shorter than a solar year.
Correct.
It's 354?
Something along those
Right,
lines.
354.
Right? Meaning to say that's why the holidays move. Right? So then we have our solar year, which is, let's say, analogous to what we have today.
365.
365 days. And then, because the Jewish calendar doesn't want to have the holidays move all around the year, they add a leap month. Was it 13 and 19 years or something like that?
So how many days are in a?
Second Adar, how many days are in?
So that's what you're
30, I
saying.
think.
Right, a
That's
leap
30?
year is
No, I mean a regular lunar year is
354 days.
54. Okay, so right, and then if you add 30 days to that, which is what you have to
So-
do.
so that-
So
that
if you
puts
start,
you
for
on
example,
that-
just
then I
after
get it.
Shavuot,
Yeah. Okay.
in
384.
a regular Jewish year, you count 365 days, you're now beyond that.
Right.
In
I
a
get
leap
that.
year, however, you're short of that.
Right. So it can be.
So if you don't, let's just see how the Gemara is solving this. If you don't hold, according to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who is taking this from a Baraita, right? 383, we were close.
Number of days
Right.
of Jewish lunar.
We were close. I said 384, right? So, right, let's understand how this argument get made, right? So if you don't hold, right, that the festivals have to be in their proper order, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who is the editor of the Mishnah, comes to bring up a Braita when he's talking about this thing called a Shana Tmima, a full, complete year. And what he defines, according to this, a full, complete year, is a solar year, not a lunar one. And as a result, the only period of time in the Jewish calendar that would be longer is a Jewish leap year, which includes a leap month instead of a leap day. I think that is brilliant. I think that is brilliant. I think it's important for us to know just loosely that the context of that Braita is about the sale of a house in a walled city, which if you look in the note here on the top right, with regard to the year following the sale of a house in the walled city during the time the former owner may redeem his property, one counts one complete lunar year, 12 months from the counting of that date, and the intercalated year, don't know that term, one includes an additional month. So the Rambam is starting to tell us there's other things going on here. So we're not going to, right? Did I read it wrong?
No, that's right.
Right, an additional, oh, I did not know that.
So that's the actual halacha, not what.
Right, that's in the
what he's saying
context
here.
of a walled city.
Right.
That's the context of, right? Because remember, what's happening is we're having this conversation about dates and years and stuff, but we have a problem, which is we have this thing about a year. What is this year? Where else does a year show up? Oh, in this conversation over here. Let's plug that in. So now we are stuck a little bit having this conversation about walled cities and the sale of houses. That's okay, but that helps us understand the bigger context, right? Okay, I got excited. I spat all over my Gemara. Okay, I actually think what we're going to do is we're going to stop there.
Okay.
Because I think because I that was a lot to cover, and I want us to be able to like pick up next week with a little fresh head and jump into this. But here I think is one of the important takeaways, right? I was trying to have a little takeaway where we can walk away with something. It's not just about learning Gemara, right? We're learning about the way Gemara works, right? It's about holding both of those things simultaneously. And I think for us is to understand that there is a solution to many problems. There are creative solutions to the problems we create for ourselves. But I also think that it's about getting out of your own context sometimes. It's about stepping out and seeing a different situation to help us clarify our own. We had this whole conversation about a sort of objection, not objection, whatever the hell that was, right? And then the Gemara is actually having a conversation about this thing that it's inside of itself. And it wasn't until it stepped outside, brought in some new positions, brought in some new ideas, new concepts. What?
New blood.
New blood, right? Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, who's probably the opposite of new blood, but I like it. New blood, new perspective.
Euphemistically.
That, right, exactly. That we were able to solve the problem before us by perhaps borrowing something from someone else, right?
Are you sure we solved it?
No, I'm not sure we solved it.
To create a harmonious solution.
Right, a solution, not the solution, not the only solution.
harmonious
Something that seems to work for now.
So we're supposed to leave at ease at this point because we.
I'm not going to say that. You can be stressed out about this if you want.
He brought this down from a baraisa about a house in a walled city.
But I'm worried about this.
You tell me this applies to an obligation? Why? It's only about houses in a walled city.
So,
That
but
was
I think the takeaway, at least that we can walk through this week, is to look for other perspectives to help us solve our own perhaps challenges.
That's right.
Okay, have a wonderful week, everybody.
So I won't be here